back, everybody, to Fresh Ice. I'm Andy Matusi. With me, as always, is my brother Brian. And today is Friday, March 8th, better known as the NHL trade deadline. As we record, the deadline has already passed, as that was at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today. We have a ton to talk about because it has been a wild couple of days here. And we usually don't record our episodes until Sunday. However, being that today's the trade deadline and we kind of gypped you guys out of an episode last week, we figured, why the hell would we not do this episode today? So, there is a ton that we have to get covered on this episode. Brian, what the hell is going on?
A lot's going on. First of all, I'm going to be a little more soft-spoken this episode. I'm coming down with some kind of sickness and my throat is killing me. So it's going to be like my Jordan flu game.
Okay.
So we're going to get the show started. Today's show is presented by Xeno Pucks. And I want to just get right into it because, again, a lot happened today and we need to address kind of the winners and losers of the deadline. So we're going to pretty much jump right into it here. Before we do get started, actually, real quick, I do want to shout out Puck for ALS. I was just looking at it. I had him up on Instagram. Since 2022, their whole fundraising period has ended, and from October of 2022 to now, they raised $153,043. So big shout out to Buck for ALS, and great work they're doing, and it's going towards a fantastic cause.
Absolutely, and I should point out that they're not done forever. They're just done for their fundraising season. They will be back again in November, and we will be right back to support them.
Yep, exactly. So you won't hear them on the show for a little while, but they're not going away for good. It's just for the summer. So now that we got that addressed, yeah, we got a ton we got to get to. We're going to start with probably one of the top two headlines. It seemed always pretty well finalized on the trade front. Right before the deadline, of course, the Vegas Golden Knights drop a nuke on the entire league and make a trade to acquire Tomas Hertl from the San Jose Sharks. It was completely out of nowhere. Every insider that I saw had heard no rumblings of Hertl at all until the trade happened. So going to Vegas is Tomas Hertl, a 2025 third-round pick and a 2027 third-round pick. Going to San Jose is Vegas' first-round pick from last year, David Edstrom, and their first-round pick in the draft for next year. San Jose also retains 17% of Hertl's contract, and that contract, I believe, runs through 2030. So Vegas is going to save a little bit of money there, and from what it sounds like, they're hoping to have him back before the end of the season, but he is currently on LTIR. What is your thought on this trade, Andrew, and what are you thinking about Vegas with all this cap maneuvering, if you will, that they do?
Yeah, I'm so tired of hearing about Vegas, and it's nothing personal against them. They've just been so damn good that they've been the talk of the league this year. I mean, they're the defending cup champs, and they rightfully should be talked about. And they not only are they the defending cup champs, they've continued to play like it. I mean, lately it's been a little sloppy, but they're still the Vegas Golden Knights, and they just keep adding more and more firepower, and it's just making everybody else's playoff hopes look bleak.
Yeah, and they haven't been on the greatest run lately, but again, they just lost Stone to injury. They just got Eichel back. They got a lot of, they have a lot that they're going through as a team right now. I think they'll rebound. I don't think they'll miss the playoffs. I know they dropped to the second wild card spot, so they are teetering on the edge, but they are 7 points clear of the next team chasing them.
Right.
So for Vegas, I think they'll be fine, and yeah, I think they're going to be lethal going into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a situation for them to panic in right now by any means. I mean, you're still sitting all right. There's some small things you got to work on, but you know what you got to do to get yourself back on track.
Yeah, oh yeah, without a doubt. They also acquired Noah Hannafin. I believe that was on a Wednesday night. They acquired Hannafin from the Flames. There was a 3-team deal. Going the other way were some picks and prospects, but the most important part of this trade was Noah Hannafin. He was one of the big one of the big fish of the trade deadline, and he goes to Vegas, who, again, is just unreal. They also picked up Anthony Mantha from Washington, which is a good depth trade. They look as dangerous as ever. Again, I know they have not been great lately, but once they get Stone back, hopefully they get him back. They're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're definitely a cup favorite right now. They kind of have been all season. Well, not kind of. They have been all season, and I think this just solidifies it at this point, especially with the Tomas Hurdle pickup. I mean, God, they're coming out guns a blazing. It's going to be a bloodbath for whoever has to play Vegas in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely interested to see how this is going to go. As I had mentioned to you earlier, and you didn't necessarily agree with me, but I want to relay my point on this. When I said that I think they have too many weapons now and it might backfire on them, I'm saying that from a team chemistry standpoint. Just because all these guys are such great players doesn't mean they're all going to play well together. I mean, yeah, you get a team that's absolutely stacked like that, and I mean, in a perfect scenario, yeah, I mean, they won't have any issues. But sometimes you put all those weapons on a team together and they just don't click.
It happened in
So
New York last year.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
We'll talk about New York in a while too.
yeah, I just my point is I'm not saying that it's going to backfire on them. I'm just saying if it does, don't be surprised in the long run.
Yeah, I mean there is something to be said with diving in too deep and ruining something that works, but just the positions of power they're in. I mean, they're loaded on defense. They have the league's best goalie, statistically speaking. Up front, they're dangerous as dangerous as anybody. I mean, if they can get Mark Stone healthy before the playoffs, I know got a lacerated spleen or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows what the timeline is? If they can get him back for the playoffs, they're easily the favorite to win the cup again, I would think. But if they can't, then that's a completely different conversation to have. But Vegas, again, a lot of people complain about the cap and say, oh, they're using the cap to their advantage or it's cheating or whatever. The bottom line is that these rules have existed in the CBA for years, and Vegas was just the first team to really take advantage of it. Tampa did to a lesser extent when they won their cups. Chicago kind of did. But Vegas seems like the team that has this figured out to a T now, and they're just ringing everybody out every year. And you shouldn't be upset for Vegas at Vegas for doing this. You should be upset with your own teams for not doing it. All 32 teams have the ability to do this, and it seems like the only ones that do it are the only ones people complain about. So don't be mad at them. Be mad at your team's GM. It's the bottom line.
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, Vegas is capitalizing on an opportunity that everybody else has and just is not taking advantage of. And Vegas, the reason they're doing so damn well is because they're not afraid to go all out when and where necessary.
Somebody said Vegas would throw their own mom off a cliff if it meant if they could load up for the playoffs or whatever, or to win the Stanley Cup. I was like, Jesus Christ. Which makes sense with all the first round picks they've just kicked right out the door.
Yeah, I mean that they want to win right now. They already have. They want to keep the train rolling. They don't. I mean, why are you going to step down at this point? See how many you can get
every year. Year they got a taste of winning the cup and they want more, and they are going to go, if they have even the slightest chance, they are going deep for it every year.
Absolutely. No disagreement here. They are going to be an absolute lethal weapon for years to come.
Yes, definitely. All right, I do want to move on. We could do a whole segment on Vegas, but again, when we do our playoff preview, I have a feeling we'll somehow be talking about them at length. I want to move on to the Carolina Hurricanes, who picked up Evgeny Kuznetsov in a trade and Jake Gensel in a trade. Carolina really added some good weapons, a team that was much maligned for their inability to score in the later rounds of the playoffs, added two guys that can really put the puck in the net. The transaction with Kuznetsov, Washington retains 50% of his salary, gets a third-round pick in return. Of course, Carolina obviously gets Kuznetsov himself. Just came back from the player assistance program. I know he's had a few extra chances in this league, and he's had off-ice issues in the past, but as far as hockey goes, when he's on, he's lethal. You can argue he probably should have been the playoff MVP when Washington won the cup, but it seemed that was destined for Ovechkin. It was always going to be Ovechkin. Kuznetsov could have put up 50 points in the playoffs, and it wouldn't have made a difference. So this is a really good player when he's on, and for Carolina's sake, I hope he is, because they need his scoring.
Yeah, I think he's going to fit in just fine in Carolina, and same with Gensel. I will say I was surprised to see Gensel go to Carolina. When the first time I heard his name in a like legitimate trade talks for the deadline, there was a deal that was being worked on between Boston, Pittsburgh, and Vancouver that would send Jake Gensel to Vancouver, and Elias Lindholm would go to Boston, and there was a third player in there who I can't remember for the life of me at this
Yeah, I
exact
can't remember.
moment.
I think it was L.A. or something like. I don't remember who it was, but yeah,
Oh, it was Jake DeBrusk. Jake DeBrusk was going to go to Pittsburgh.
oh, Pittsburgh. That's what. Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
said
that's
L.A. Yeah,
yeah,
of course, Pittsburgh's the third team. They're the ones that had
yeah,
him. Yeah, don't
yeah.
mind me.
It was Jake DeBrusk going to Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
Gensel going to Vancouver, and Lindholm going to Boston. Which honestly, I would have been fine with it. The Bruins have had so many talks of trading DeBrusk the last 3 seasons. At this point, I'm just like, all right, when's it going to happen?
we should mention the return that the Penguins got for Gensel. They got a conditional first round pick this year, a conditional fifth round pick this year. I assume, I don't know what the conditions are on those picks. I assume that fifth becomes a higher pick if Carolina wins the Stanley Cup. The first, I can't imagine what the condition on that is. I assume some kind of top 10 protection in the event Carolina falls off a cliff. I don't know. Pittsburgh also gets Michael Bunting and 3 prospects. But yeah, again, Carolina much maligned for their inability to score in the playoffs. Their last few deep runs. For me, my big thing, I've always said Carolina seems like the biggest pretenders. My biggest concern for them now that they're so loaded up is still the goaltending. They've had Anderson and Ranta for all these runs, and it's ended the same way, man. You need to get a better goalie, and I know Carolina swells everybody up on defense, but you need an elite goalie there. It seems like that's the other thing that's missing. I mean, they're getting pretty good goaltending, and now they have good scoring, but man, I just feel like an even better goalie would have really put them over the top.
Yeah,
Maybe
in
I'm
addition,
completely wrong, but
no, I agree with you. I don't know, man. It's the same thing season after season with Carolina. It's always they're so close, but they can't seem to get it done, and it's always a different issue every year.
yeah.
So, you're fixing one issue and then trying to address another one the very next season, deal with the same result in the playoffs. So, I don't know what the actual long-term fix for Carolina is there. However, I think these two pickups are going to bode well for Carolina. I think it's a good fresh start for Kuznetsov. I'm excited to see what he does with them. I'm not a Carolina fan, but I'm excited to see what Kuznetsov does because I do like him. And I'm excited to see how this actually affects Gensel as well. I
It
can tell
affected the
you,
Penguins pretty poorly.
yeah, I was watching Trade Center on TSN earlier, and they showed the interview with Crosby after he found out that Gensel got traded, and
That was also following a 6-0 loss, so I should mention they had just gotten blown out at home right before that interview.
it's true, but he was not happy about it
No, but
at
it
all.
is unprecedented territory too. I mean, think of it this way: the only other time in Crosby's career that the Penguins were sellers were his rookie season because they were still so bad. Other than
Absolutely.
that, they've bought every year. They've expected deep runs every year, even the years where they were bounced in the first round or whatever. They always have high expectations. So for Sid to lose a guy who's a very close personal friend of his, a guy that played on a line with him, top power play with him, all that, to lose all of that and then to go lose 6-0 to their biggest rival, Washington, at home, there's a lot to take in all at once. It's uncharted territory. You lose a line mate, you lose a friend, you get killed at home.
Yeah.
I know he was pissed, but a lot of people are rushing to say, man, is he going to ask for a trade out of town? I just think he needs time to let everything kind of settle in and relax. I know you were like, man, he looks like he wants out of there, but
Yeah.
you got to allow him time to process everything, man. It just happened. And like I said, it happens that night and then they go get killed. It's a snowball effect. And I don't think the long-term repercussions are that serious. I still think he's going to extend there July 1st as soon as he can.
Well, and back to what you said a moment ago with, the last time he had to deal with anything similar to this was his rookie season with the Penguins being buyers. I mean, this is the first time in his career he's actually felt any heavy impact from the trade deadline in his career. So that's something else to take into consideration too. So I get where he's coming from 100%.
Yeah. So, but again, to go back to Carolina, I do think this trade makes them way better. I think I can get further away from saying they're pretenders now because they are lethal, and again, they swallow you up defensively. So if they can get the scoring, I mean, they are extremely dangerous. And Freddie Anderson is not a bad goalie, and if he can get back to form, he is dangerous. I mean, that run he had with the Ducks in 2015 was unreal. He is a very good goalie if he's on, but his injuries and all that, I always just am like that. They need a guy. It's not even that the goaltending's bad. It's that everybody gets fucking hurt there, it seems. So that's the other side of the coin. But it's indifferent now. The trade deadline has come and gone. So Carolina's going to try and take another crack at it with this roster. I'll be interested to see how they do.
Yeah, I'll be interested as well. I really wouldn't mind seeing Rod Brindamore win a cup. I really wouldn't. As a coach.
Did. I was going to say he already did.
As a coach.
He infamously ripped the Stanley Cup out of Gary Bettman's hands too. I don't know if you've ever seen their cup celebration, but it's great.
Yes.
He goes to take the picture and Brendan Moore just yoinks it right out of his hand. So I think that's kind of
how we all feel about
great
Gary
moment.
Bettman.
That's a great moment in league history. All right, let's move on here. So we talked about Vegas loading up. We talked about Carolina loading up. I want to talk about 3 teams in the Central that are preparing for war in the playoffs. That would be the Winnipeg Jets, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Dallas Stars.
All right.
So the Avalanche in the last couple days pick up Brandon Duhaime from Minnesota, Sean Walker from Philly, Casey Middlestad from Buffalo, and Yakov Trenin from Nashville. They didn't go get a frickin' goalie. That's all we've talked about.
What the fuck are they thinking?
I should also really mention, too, as we're recording this, apparently Val Nichushkin is coming back into the lineup tonight. So Colorado's getting a boost of 5 players back into this lineup. I don't think there is any question that up front and on defense, they are by a mile probably the best team in the league. I am a little concerned with the goaltending still, and I know they won the cup with sub 900 goaltending in the playoffs. I don't know that trying to do it again is a good idea.
No, it's not. It's stupid. That's my opinion.
I was going to say, I don't know if you were going to elaborate on that.
No, I'm not going to elaborate. We talked about it how many episodes now. They need goaltending, and then they pretty much stand pat on goaltending at the deadline and pick up anything but.
Yeah, so they did everything, but I mean they load up on defense, load up front, and I do want to say I think that Casey Middlestad trade was a perfect trade for them. That you get a guy that's having a really good year. I think he'll be a great fit in Colorado, so that'll be fun to see how they do there. But yeah, you're going to go into the playoffs with Georgiev, who's just not been having a good year, and it could be because he's off or because he's being so overworked because Pavel Francouz has been injured. But you either have him or you have Justus Anunen, who has had a great run this last little bit, but doesn't really have the experience. And do you want to go into the playoffs relying on a rookie goaltender or a goalie who really hasn't had his best stuff this year?
At this point, they've made their bed. Now they're going to lay in it. I mean, they had the opportunity to not have to take that risk if they didn't want to, and they just didn't do anything to put themselves in a better goaltending position. So, I mean, this is on the front office at this point. So, I mean, whatever happens, but I don't know why they didn't even attempt to pick up any type of goaltending. I
was a little shocked. I couldn't believe they didn't end up with Jake Allen. I thought that seemed like a done deal at some point that it was going to happen. It just never came to fruition, but that's the way it goes. Listen, Colorado's going to make a deep run. Don't make a mistake there. I think they will probably represent the Central Division side of the playoff bracket in the Western Conference Final. I think they're better than Winnipeg. I think they're way better than Dallas, and they'll beat the snot out of a wild card team if they have to play a wild card team. But I just don't know if they got it in them to go all the way with this goaltending setup, man. I just don't know.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, man, and again, not biased view here, unbiased view. If that Stanley Cup final ended up being the Florida Panthers and the Colorado Avalanche, good night, Colorado. I'm telling you right now, Florida's going to light their goaltending up. So they're not thinking long-term here. That's the issue I see.
Yeah, I think they just saw what worked for them when they won the Cup and just think, yeah, we can do it again. And I'm not saying they can't. I mean, they very well could. I mean, with bad goaltending, they went 16-4 or 16-5 on their cup run. So it can be done, but boy, does it seem like a gamble. I do want to move over to Winnipeg now, who also added the past couple days, or today really, they added Tyler Toffoli and Colin Miller. Picking up Toffoli, I think, is a great look for them. I mean, adding more scoring never hurts. And Colin Miller's not going to be, he's not going to be a top-pairing defenseman or anything, but you're going to have injuries in the playoffs. Colin Miller's a great defenseman. He's got a really good shot. It doesn't hurt having him, so I think that was just a good pickup for them. And it doesn't push the needle any further, but it certainly doesn't hurt them. They're looking really good too. The trades for Velarde and Iafallo have really worked out for them. Scheifele's playing well. Hellebuck is playing outstanding this year for them. It's really annoying anytime I watch Minnesota play them. They're a hard team to play against, and they're dangerous too. I just don't think they can beat the likes of Colorado. I do think they can beat Dallas though. What do you think about the Jets?
I love the trades. I think Tyler Toffoli, great pickup. Excellent pickup. Tyler Toffoli's a great player. I think he's going to fit in perfectly on that Winnipeg team. As you mentioned, Connor Hellebuck, who's one of the best goalies in the league and has been, I should point out.
Yeah,
he has been. It's not like this is a new thing. I think they're destined for success. I'll put them in one of my cup favorites.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get out of the first round,
deadline,
they're dangerous, man. They are a good team, and apparently they really love Italians. Iafallo, Velarde, Toffoli, those are all really good Italian names. So, but yeah, no, they're really good too. And I said Colorado can beat them, but that doesn't mean I don't think they can beat Colorado. I just think if they played each other, Colorado still probably edges that series out.
Yeah, I think offensively, Colorado's a tad more stacked than Winnipeg.
Oh my God, yeah.
On that side, on the other end of things, they've got Connor Hellebuck, and Colorado's got Georgiev. So
yeah,
if it comes down to goaltending, Winnipeg's going to walk away with it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how it goes. I really am excited for these playoffs.
This trade deadline is just nuts. So
yeah, there was a lot more trades than I thought we were going to have, specifically today. But
yeah,
let's see here. Let's move on to Dallas. The big fish they picked up was Chris Tanev to help bolster their defense. I don't know. I mean, it was good on them to add, definitely. I think it's really important that they take some of the load off Ryan Suter. It's no secret that he's not young, and I think that's kind of caught up to them last year, and I think that's part of the reason they ran out of gas against Vegas in the conference final last year is yet when you're playing Miro Heiskanen 30 minutes a night, not that he can't do it, but Suter just doesn't have the stamina to keep playing all these big minutes. So I think getting a chance to have Tanev go out there and take some of that load off, I think could really, really be what Dallas needs to make a deep run.
I agree. And, you and I talked about I don't think we talked about this on the air, but you and I definitely talked about this. I don't want to say we knew, but we pretty much successfully predicted that he was going to end up in Dallas. So Dallas seemed like the landing spot for him. And I actually did say this to you on the episode that we ended up taking down because we're only about giving out good content here. But, I had heard people before he got traded talking about him going for a first-round pick. And
it was a buyer's market.
Yeah, but I mean, at no point did I never thought he was worth a first-round pick. I thought that'd be a waste of a trade. And obviously, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was right because he ended up going for a second-round pick. But yeah, at no point was he a first-round pick type of player.
I didn't think so either. I think it would have been an overpayment. Now, I understand if somebody would have made a move and given up a first-round pick, I wouldn't have thrown flack their way. I would have been like, you got to do what you got to do if you think this is the team that can win it. If Dallas would have given up a first, I would have understood, but I definitely think they made out well on this deal. I do also think for Dallas, this is probably their best chance to win. I think this needs to be the year that they win if they're going to win with this group. Otherwise, I would think probably 3-4 years from now as they kind of retool, and they don't need to rebuild or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Pavelski's getting old, Suter's getting old, Tanev's not young. you have guys that are aging and they're significant pieces of your lineup. You're going to need to retool in some capacity. I think this is probably their best chance for the next 3 years to win the Stanley Cup. Ottinger's at the top of his game in net. You need to take advantage of a season like this. So I think adding Tanev is exactly the piece they needed. I'd be interested to see what they do.
Yeah, me too. It was a great pickup for them, and I mean, if they don't win it this year, which if I'm being 100% honest, they're not going to. That's my opinion. People might disagree with me. I might get dragged for it. I don't care.
I don't think they will either.
No, this isn't Dallas's year. But if they're going to have a year anytime soon, it needs to be this year.
I won't be surprised if they do. But yeah, I definitely don't think this is the year. There's just too many teams that are better than them, but they are so good that it certainly wouldn't surprise me if they did.
Well, and as we saw with Florida last year, anything can happen with anybody. So, I mean, I don't want to make official predictions on anything, but I just don't see it happening.
No, they have all the right ingredients. It's just there's so many good teams. There's so many damn good teams. Speaking of good teams, I want to move on to the New York Rangers, who I think got a little gun shy after everything that happened last year. They had last year at the deadline, they had Tarasenko, they had Kane. It completely destroyed their team chemistry. They fell apart. They stumbled into the playoffs and lost in the first round of Jersey. This year, they're rolling. Igor's got his game back in net. They had Jack Roslovic and Chad Ruhwedel. Nothing super crazy, but some good depth. And again, you're going to have injuries, so it's good to have guys with experience that can get in and just fill spots in your lineup. So that part of it's good for the Rangers. But I think a lot of people think that maybe Chris Drury should have done more to add to the Rangers, but he saw what happened last year. I think he just got gun shy and didn't want to screw with something that's working this year. And I think the Rangers should be one of the favorites in the Eastern Conference still.
Oh, they definitely should be, but I agree with you in the fact about him being gun shy. He saw how he got burned last year, and he you don't want to do too much 2 years in a row, screw yourself like that. So I understand where his thought process is there, but at the same time, they're not quite elite enough that they should have been standing pat either.
Yeah.
So I was expecting a little more out of them. I was a little surprised, and like you said, not bad pickups by any means. Any stretch.
And again, the guys that I don't think push the needle further for them, but they don't need that. What they really need is the guys that they already have to get going. They got to get Zibanejad going. He's scoring on the power play, but I just heard the other day he hasn't scored a 5-on-5 goal since I think December or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Really been that long?
Yeah, I mean, again, he's still putting up points, but you need production. In the playoffs, it seems like fewer penalties are called, and you need to be able to play good 5-on-5 games, and the Rangers, I feel like, are at the top of their game, but yeah, they got to get Zibanejad going. That's your top center. You need him to produce in all facets of the game, not just on special teams.
Yeah, any team that's going to rely on only power play goals, you're not going to win anything. That's just common sense.
Yeah. Well, and again, in the playoffs, it's just a different game in the playoffs. So yeah, you have to go into it with a more stable mindset.
Absolutely.
So again, I think the Rangers should be feared. I think if anybody in the Metro can take down Carolina, it is the Rangers. So I'd be interested. I would love to see a playoff series between the two of them because that's two teams that are very well coached and two teams that are very deep. So I think that would make for a perfect playoff series, and that would be a fun one to watch as somebody that's not a fan of either of those teams. No dog in the fight, but I think that would be a great one to watch.
I'm going to be watching. If that's a series, that's going to be one of the series I pay attention to the most. Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to the Bruins. They picked up Pat Maroon from the Minnesota Wild. He's currently injured still, but he should be back in time for the playoffs. They also had a trade lined up today to send Linus Ullmark to L.A. Unfortunately for the Bruins, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, L.A. was one of the 16 teams on Linus Ullmark's no-trade clause in his contract, so he declined the trade, and so he will stay a member of the Bruins. For Boston, we'll never know what the return was going to be probably, but for Boston, they hold on to, they keep their biggest strength, which is those two amazing goalies. And I think they're going to need that going forward since they didn't get that big center they were looking for. They really could have used one. So the Bruins' formula for winning the Stanley Cup is going to be defense and goaltending. And since they didn't get those centers, I think this is going to be the best way they can go forward is to just keep rolling with these two.
Yeah, I mean, as a Bruins fan myself, I'm obviously happy we didn't ship Olmark out, though I totally would have understood the reasoning behind it, especially, I as much as we love to say we don't like to speculate, even though we secretly do, I can only imagine they're maybe going for Drew Doughty to beef up the defense on
Defense.
our end.
I could have saw that,
So,
and we talked on the phone earlier too. I wouldn't have been surprised to see like Philippe Deneau come the other way, but I don't know. It
yeah.
just it just depends. Like I said, I'm sure we'll never know. But for Boston again, they're gonna roll into the playoffs leaning on what's worked for them all season long. Seemingly, I know they've struggled lately, but when they're at their best, they're shutting it down on defense and letting the goalies take care of everything else.
Well, and I think this also keeps what's remaining of the team chemistry intact too. I've mentioned on previous episodes, there's clearly been some chemistry issues since the All-Star break, but I think shipping Olmark out would have only made that worse. So I think you keep the chemistry between Swayman and Olmark, which is in exchange a massive morale boost for the team as a whole. So in the end, I'm happy it worked out the way it did, but at the same time, if he would have left town, I can only imagine the return we would have got would have been incredible. So
Well,
either way, not a bad situation.
depending on the result of this playoffs, I think Linus Olmark still might be out of town in the offseason. The Bruins really
Yeah.
seem like they're high on Brandon Bussey and want to see what he can do at the NHL level. I would not be surprised if Olmark sent out in the offseason to try and give Bussey that opportunity because they're not going to trade Swayman. It seems like
No.
he's kind of taken the lead as the true number one, and you're not shipping out your best guy. There's no way, especially while they're still trying to get center depth, they're not shipping out their best goalie. So I got to imagine Olmark's gone this summer.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I want to point out Swayman's in top 10 in the league in save percentage right now as well.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Let's see. Let's move on to the Florida Panthers, who, after this deadline, I really don't see a team in the East that stands a chance against the Florida Panthers. I really don't. They're already playing incredibly well. They're getting great goaltending. They're scoring a ton. They seem unstoppable, and then they go at Tarasenko and Kyle Okposo, which Okposo is going to be kind of a cool story if Florida does make a deep run because Okposo's been around forever, so I think it would be kind of cool to see him win. But Tarasenko, you get a proven scorer, a guy that's won the Stanley Cup, a guy who's got playoff experience. I think it's a perfect pickup for them. Even if he's not playing every night, that's an incredible player still. And Florida also extended Gustav Forsling this week, a much-deserved contract extension there. It seemed like going into the season that Montour was going to be their big number one guy on defense, and he's still great, but Forsling's really taken the reins on the back end this year.
yeah, it's been a great season for Forsling. And again, not to discredit Brandon Montour, but Forsling's really done an exceptional job of making a name for himself this year, and he has earned every dollar and every day of that contract extension that he just got. And as a fan myself, I'm really excited that they did that. I was over the moon when they announced it, as were almost all Panthers fans.
That's a killer deal they got for him too.
Yes.
It's like 5.5 million per year, 5.2 million a year.
For 8 years.
That's an incredible deal, and again, it helps because of the no state income tax.
Yes.
So that deal pays him $5 million a year, which to make $5 million after taxes in another state, he probably needs like an $8 or $9 million deal. So
Correct.
this not only helps him make the money he wants to make, but it saves the Panthers on cap space because cap space doesn't care about taxes or none of that shit. It's a hard cap. So this really helps Florida to get arguably their best or one of their best defensemen locked up for so long. I mean, you're a fan of the team, man. Have you ever been this excited for the playoffs to start? I mean, I know the Bruins had that big season last year, but this even to me seems more like destiny.
I'm far more excited. Let me preface this. I am a Bruins fan and a Panthers fan. I am a Boston Bruins fan first. With that being said, I've never been this excited for playoff hockey ever, especially for Panthers hockey. I am far more interested in what the Panthers are going to do in the playoffs this year than what the Bruins are going to do. And I don't want to get my heart broken, but that's what I do in hockey. My hopes are sky high for Florida right now. And when they added Tarasenko, I could have screamed. I was so excited.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Every move they've made the last... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I say every move they've made the last 18 months has just been dynamite for them. Everything has worked. Kachuk has really just become a good franchise player for them. Montour stepped his game up. Forsling stepped his game up. Bobrovsky stepped his game up. The Ekman-Larson signing worked out really, really well for them. I think even more than they were expecting. I mean, just everything they've done has worked out so well for them. If they can stay healthy, I can't imagine there's a team in the East that can beat them.
I'm telling you right now, man. And you can call this bias, unbiased. I don't give a shit what people say or think. I don't think there's a team in the league right now that can stop Florida, with the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights, if they get firing on all cylinders again.
Yeah.
Because right now, Florida is firing on all cylinders. Everything is just going great for them. Bob is a brick wall. Stoley's doing exceptionally well, too. They're both top 10 in the save percentage for the league right now as well. So the Florida Panthers team we're seeing right now is nothing that I myself, or honestly any other Panthers fan, thought we'd ever see. Honestly, I mean, I've been watching them since the dark ages.
Yeah.
When Derek McKenzie was still the captain. So
And Willie Mitchell before him.
yeah, so it's just really nice to see. I'm so excited for it. I'm excited to see what Tarasenko's going to do. I watched their game last night, and you could definitely tell it was he was very much adjusting to being there, but he waived his no movement clause.
He wanted to go to Florida.
Yes.
That was the only team. He said it was the only team he wanted to move or waive his no move clause for. So he got what he wanted. Let's hope he performs well. I mean, it worked out for Panarin. He wanted to go to the Rangers so badly. He's been incredible since he's been there. So hopefully being in the right environment. I mean, it worked for Kachuk too. He wanted to go to the Panthers. He always wanted to play in Florida, and he's just unreal. He's their best player, arguably.
Yes. And, Bill Zito has a plan for the Florida Panthers, and he said from the start, and he still says it now, is that I want the Florida Panthers to be a destination hockey team. I want everybody to want to come play here.
Last season,
and he has made it to where that has happened.
Yeah, last season was a big turnaround. I think probably the next 10, 15 years, you're going to see Florida be a place where guys want to go play. Now they all understand, it's a low-tax state. The weather's beautiful in the winter. I mean, how much easier is it to go to the rink when it's so nice outside and the team's playing well and you're making a shitload of money? It's just everything works right. I think the next 10 years, I think the Panthers are going to be an absolute force.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad to see that and hear that, because a few years ago, we were wondering if Florida was even going to have a team in 10 years,
Yeah.
So not the state of Florida, but Sunrise specifically. I mean, Tampa ain't going anywhere.
There were some dark days, man. There were some dark days, those 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, attended games. Those were pretty rough. It looked like the team was getting ready to pack it up, but hell, if the Coyotes can survive out in Arizona, the Panthers will survive in Florida forever. So, but we're not going to talk about the Coyotes because, we're just not that. We're talking about teams that are good. We're not going to go into the Coyotes. They did offload some players today, but I didn't think it was anything notable, so we're not going to go too far into that. I do want to get into our Tough Look of the Week, and who is that brought to us by?
Tough Look is brought to you by, as always, Lightings Property Management. For all your lawn care, landscaping, and snow removal needs, give Lightings a call. They do it all.
All right, our Tough Look of the Week is 3 teams. And that would be the Colorado Avalanche, the New Jersey Devils, and the LA Kings. I want to preface this by saying that Colorado is not a tough look in the fact that they're doomed going forward, but they had all this time to get any goalie that's better, going to put up a better save percentage than Alexander Georgiev, and they didn't do it. So now you're stuck with him and a rookie. And I think that's the theme of this tough look, is teams that needed goalies that didn't do jack shit to get them. I will also say on LA's behalf that they did try and get Linus Ullmark. They were on his no trade list. So LA ultimately dropped the ball there, and now they're stuck with David Rittich and Cam Talbot going forward.
Yeah, well, if Cam Talbot can get consistent, they might be okay. But
he was incredible to start the year, though. That's the thing.
That's my point. If he can get consistent again, then there's no issue there. But the problem is we're not seeing that. So, and as far as Dave Riddick go, that guy's a scrub.
Yeah, they got to get Dubois going too. They just gotta. You can't lose your ass that hard on that trade. They gotta. I don't know what they got to do to light a fire under his ass, but if they have any aspirations of making a deep playoff run, they gotta get him going. And now,
Yeah,
go ahead.
there's more issues there though than just that though. I mean that team's got a lot of kinks that's got to work out.
Jersey, I also want to throw in here. They did get a goalie, but it seems like it's well too late into the season for it to make a difference. Now they'll really need to tear it up the last month of the season here to make the playoffs. I think getting Jake Allen was a good move for them, and he does have terms, so Devils could be right back next year in this. But I think they could have gotten a better goalie going forward, and B, they waited far too long to do this. If Jake Allen was going to be your guy, why the hell didn't you do this a month and a half ago? It's not like they were asking for an arm and a leg for him. Right. So I think Jersey kind of dropped the ball there, and I'm sure they'll be back in the playoff hunt next year. I just think this, unfortunately, is going to be a wasted year for them after having extremely high aspirations going into it.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that myself. And I mean, it's Jake Allen. It's not like they're asking for Carey Price. It's Jake Allen. So, I mean, career, not bad goalie by any stretch.
No, not at all.
Career, I guess, average goalie is what I would call him. So, I mean, not a bad pickup for them by any means, but I don't know what the big holdup was.
Yeah, so it is what it is. I just want to bounce back to Colorado again, too. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face. It just still doesn't make sense to me, man. They did everything else right except get a goalie, so they must be convinced that they can get Georgiev to turn it on in the playoffs, or they must think Justus Anunen is like the guy, because it's so weird that a team this good everywhere else made no effort to improve in goaltending, or seemingly no effort.
I've talked to you about this multiple times this week. Throughout every trade they made, and I'm not a Colorado fan by any stretch. But
me neither. They're Minnesota's biggest rival.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that and Dallas.
But the fact that you need a goalie that bad and you did nothing about it just pisses me off. And if you're a Colorado fan and you're listening to this, you should be pissed off too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they didn't make good acquisitions, but their number one priority this whole trade deadline season should have been goaltending, and they didn't do jack shit.
They needed a true number two because Ryan Johansson wasn't getting it done. But again, they went out and they got Casey Middlestad. Great. Now adjust your bad goaltending. Right. What'll be funny is in June when Colorado wins the Stanley Cup and we look like complete idiots. This will be fun to revisit, but yeah, because that's how that goes. We'll talk all this shit and then they'll run everybody over.
If Colorado wins the Stanley Cup, I have no problem coming back on here and saying I was wrong.
Oh, me neither. Not at all. Same thing with Carolina. If Carolina runs everybody over, wins the cup, I'll be like, yeah, I was wrong. They weren't pretenders. They just needed scoring. But for Colorado, the problem isn't if they win. I'm more than willing to admit I'm wrong if they win. The problem is if they lose, we all saw it coming the entire season, and that's the issue.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it so many times. We're a broken record at this point. I don't know what else to say. There's nothing else I can say. You didn't do shit. You knew you needed a goalie. You didn't do it. You let your team down. You let your fans down. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite them in the ass. We'll find out come playoff time.
Yep. So I am excited to see kind of where this goes with them. And again, I'm sure they'll be fine. I'm sure they'll at least win a round or two. But it does, again, if they lose, it just seems like it so easily could have been avoided.
Yep. So over here at Fresh Ice, we are very happy to announce that we have partnered with Xeno Pucks. You heard us talk about them on the last episode, and man, we've just got nothing but good things to say about them. If you're wondering what Xeno Pucks is, it is a company that has made a top-tier practice puck that you can use for off-ice training, for stick handling, practicing your shots, whatever. And this puck glides on, and I don't want to say any surface, but almost any surface. I've tried this thing on asphalt, concrete, the carpet in my house. It glides as if it's a real puck on ice. And it's as close to a real puck as you can get. It's the same regulation, 6 ounces as a regular hockey puck. It looks and feels like a hockey puck, but it is not made out of rubber. With that being said, I don't recommend you play a game with it because, again, it is not a rubber hockey puck and it will hurt.
It is
So
hard as a
please,
rock, yeah.
yes, so please do not do that. However, if you are looking for a top tier practice puck to use off ice, stop looking because this is it. You might pay a tad more for these pucks than you would for something else, but I'm telling you, the quality is not going to be the same if you go another route. These guys over at Xeno Pucks are great dudes. They make a great product and they charge an honest price for it. And they have some really great merch too. So head on over to xenopucks.com, check it out, get some merch, get yourself a puck. You will not regret this, I promise. I have one, Brian has one, Ben, our last guest, got one as well. They're incredible. I've never seen anything like it. They have a ton of videos over on their Instagram page. Check them out at Xeno Pucks. That's Xeno Pucks. Xeno Pucks. Check them out. You won't regret it.
All right. So let's move on here. Now that we've talked trade deadline, I want to talk about kind of what our expectations are now for the rest of this season. There's very obviously a couple of teams that are going to be the big players moving forward here. And I want to get your thoughts on kind of who's going to be the favorites here in the playoffs as we go forward. And again, we will still do a playoff preview show, of course. But now we know what the rosters are pretty much going to look like. I want to start in the Western Conference and just kind of get your thoughts on some of the top teams here. So what do you think of a team? I mean, the top five in the Western Conference as far as the standings go are Vancouver, Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Edmonton. What do you kind of think for the Western Conference? Who do you like? Who do you not like out of all those teams in the playoffs right now?
I'm going to give you my top three for Cup favorites. And one of them might surprise you because I just spent half this episode bashing on them. But my top three favorites in the West right now to win the Cup: Vegas, Winnipeg, Colorado. And Colorado's the one that's probably going to throw everybody for a loop because I just spent an episode ranting on them. But I still think, we've said it before, they are still a team that can outscore their goaltending issues. And they're a very dangerous team, and we've seen them win the Cup with poor goaltending before. So don't be surprised if it happens. They're my third favorite, but I'm saying if any team out of the West is winning it right now, it's going to be Vegas all the way. And I'm not discrediting Vancouver. I want to put that out there. I know Vancouver is a very good, a very dangerous team. They've got some really powerful weapons on that team, but they're just not in my top three.
No, I like that list. With Vancouver, my biggest issue is I'm not convinced that Thatcher Demko is the guy that can get it done for them in the playoffs. My other concern is the lack of overall playoff experience on that roster. I think that will also be a big downfall for them. But I am a little concerned with Thatcher Demko. He's a fantastic goalie. I don't know what it is. There's no evidence behind this. I just don't know that he's the guy to get it done there. So I ultimately don't have them as one of my favorites in the West, despite them leading the conference right now, and they're 1 point shy of the league lead for points. If I had to take three out of the West, I'm taking Vegas for sure if they're healthy. If Mark Stone's not in there, that kind of throws a wrench into the pile. Otherwise, I like Colorado, and my dark horse out of the West is the Oilers.
Really?
If they can get Stuart Skinner hot, he is unreal when he's hot. If he gets hot at the right time, nobody's beating the Oilers, man. You're not beating Connor McDavid. I mean, the only team that put up a real fight against Vegas in the playoffs last year was Edmonton. And Florida really couldn't because of injuries, but Edmonton gave Vegas everything they could handle, and we're still dispatching 6 games. But if the Oilers get hot at the right time, nobody's beating them. At least in my opinion, I don't think anybody can if they get going.
That's interesting. That is not what I thought you were going to say.
I was going to say, you told me you were going to shock me. I actually thought you were going to say the Oilers, but
oh no.
Yeah, I do like Vegas though. If they're healthy, if Stone's healthy, I think they're really good. Colorado, okay. I could definitely see. I don't want their goaltending to be the reason they don't win if they don't win. Let's move over into the Eastern Conference. You got a couple of your favorite teams over here. I kind of want to hear what you love about the Eastern Conference right now. Top 5 teams in the conference: Florida, Boston, New York Rangers, Carolina, and Toronto.
All right. Well, so I'm going to get dragged for this because of course I'm going to say my 2 favorite teams, but I'm doing it based solely off statistics right now. my three favorites in the East right now to win the Cup, and one of them it's gonna absolutely kill me to say, but Florida is number one, Boston at number two, and Toronto at number three, and that's oh god, yeah, God,
Well,
that hurt a little to say. I'm not gonna lie.
I want to hear why you like all three of those teams. I mean, I could probably connect the dots on Florida and Boston, but I still want to hear what you think specifically, and I definitely want to hear why you think Toronto, because we are way apart on that one.
I knew you weren't going to agree with me on that one. But I'll start with Florida. I mean, first of all, I know we always say never base your predictions for the playoffs off the regular season because anything can happen. And Boston is the prime example of that from last year's record setting season. And then they shit the bed in the first round against the Panthers, ironically. But this is a team unlike any other team we've seen before. And when I say we, I mean hockey as a whole. This Florida Panthers team is unreal right now. Matthew Tkachuk has really become a franchise player for them. I mean, he already was the face of the organization last year. He was the Game 4 hero against Carolina in the Eastern Conference Final. Everybody loves Matthew Tkachuk, but he's really starting to show him his true capabilities this year. Sam Reinhart is another one right now. The guy just cannot be stopped. And honestly, he'd be pretty close in leading the league in scoring if Austin Matthews wasn't in Jesus Christ mode right now. So you got to factor that in as well. We just picked up Tarasenko. Bob and Stoli have been playing out of their minds. Like I said, both of them are top 10 in the league in save percentage. And we all know one thing about Bobrovsky. He can be inconsistent, but when he's hot, nobody's getting anything past him. He is a brick wall. And he is, I mean, he is a Vezina goalie. I think that's worth mentioning, too. He did win the Vezina.
He should be a finalist this year. I have a feeling he might be. I mean, he's got good competition with Hellebuck and Hill and Demko.
He'll be a finalist. I guarantee it.
I got to say, honestly, Bobrovsky, not necessarily his play style, but his streakiness reminds me a lot of Pecorine. Pecorine, when he was on, was a machine for Nashville. And when he was off, he was just ho-hum. And that's kind of what Bobrovsky is. But, yeah, if Bob gets going, I think you're right on.
But then you got Stoli right behind him. Stoli's been a brick wall as well. So, I mean, they've both been.
He's been good, but again, does he have it for the playoffs? It's a different animal.
And again, that's something we won't know until that time rolls around. But we've seen Bob in the playoffs. We've seen what he's capable of. So I know what to expect from there, and everybody else should as well. I think, look, this has got to be the Panthers' year. And I'm saying not only are they my favorite to win the Cup in the East, they are. I am making my prediction right now. And as much as I joke about jinxing and all that crap, it's bullshit. I am telling you right now, and I don't care if I get dragged for this shit, the Florida Panthers are winning the Stanley Cup this year. Mark my words.
There's his stake in the ground. Andrew thinks the Panthers are winning the Stanley Cup.
March 8th, 2024, Andy Matusi said on Fresh Ice, Florida Panthers are winning the Stanley Cup. You heard it here first.
I don't think I'd be surprised. I do have some disagreements. First of all, I definitely take Florida as one of my top three, 100%. I disagree with Boston and Toronto. My two other teams I would take to come out of the East would be the Rangers and Carolina. Toronto, I just don't think they got it, man. They just don't have the defense. The goaltending isn't especially great, and if they play the Bruins in the first round, they're going to get bounced in the first round. It's just every team's got their boogeyman, and that's Toronto's. I don't see Toronto doing any damage. They're so gifted offensively, but unlike Colorado, they don't have that defensive prowess, and their goaltending is just meh. So I'm really not scared of Toronto in any capacity, and I would be shocked to see them get past the first or second round. For the Bruins, we talked about it a little bit. They're going to rely on the goaltending and the defense, which they do have. But in the playoffs, puck possession is so much more important because the game is so much more defensive and physical. And while they do have the physical forwards to kind of play that game, puck possession is going to be a problem because without the center depth, you're not going to have those great face-off guys. I mean, you got Coyle and Zacha who are pretty good, but I think they really wanted to go out, and that's why I think they were going to go after a guy like Philippe Deneau in LA because they wanted a guy that can win some face-offs. And I think if the Bruins don't go far, I think that's going to be what kills them is that they just couldn't possess the puck enough. to stay alive. So I
And a
think
lot,
that's kind of where we're apart on those two. But in the same light, if the Bruins do win, it's going to be those goalies dragging them to victory.
oh, 100%. Goaltending is going to carry the Bruins, provided they stay hot and consistent. Um, as far as the face-off thing goes, I mean, that's one of the things that hurt a lot about losing Bergeron. You got a guy who was what
Yeah, and
60%
Krejci
on the
too.
face-off. Yeah. So I mean, you lose those two guys right there. There goes your face-off percentage down the
And
drain.
nobody was expecting them to be have a guy that's 60% on the face-off with Bergeron gone. But I mean, I think that's really what's going to kill them the most is not having those super reliable centers. And they had it so nice with Bergeron for all those years because you could just throw him out there and be like, yeah, he's winning the straw. But I do want to talk about the Rangers and Carolina. I mentioned it earlier. The Rangers are really rolling right now. Igor's got his game back. I think kind of letting Quick take over the net for a month and a half was exactly what he needed to really get going. And he found his groove, and the Rangers are rolling. If they can get Mika Zibanejad going at even strength, I think they'll even be better. So I think the Rangers should probably be the favorite to come out of the Metro side of the Eastern Conference bracket in the playoffs. In the same light, I think Carolina, I would not be surprised now that they have some more scoring. They seem to have no issue getting to the conference finals. So as much as I think it's New York's division to take, I would not be surprised to see Carolina in the conference final again. But I do ultimately think that regardless of who it is coming out of the Metro side there, I do think they'll be looking on the other end at the Florida Panthers. And I just don't see anybody in the East that can beat Florida. They are just so good. If they stay healthy, I mean, we saw it last year until Kachuk got injured. Nobody could beat them. They had that big comeback against the Bruins. They ran over Toronto. They ran over Carolina. And even with an injured Matthew Kachuk, they took a game from Vegas in the Cup final, but just ran out of gas. I mentioned all their signings have worked well for them. Everything is going their way. I don't see a world where they don't at least win the conference and could very easily win the Stanley Cup. I don't know if I'm ready to make my prediction for a Stanley Cup final winner. I do really want to see if Vegas gets Mark Stone back for the playoffs. And who knows, when we do our playoff preview show, we might still not know. But if they get him back, I mean, that makes a hell of a difference. But I would definitely say Florida in the East is my favorite to come out of the East. And if I'm looking in the West, I'm probably going to take Colorado at this point unless Vegas can get Mark Stone back. If Vegas gets Mark Stone back, they're going to probably be my favorite to win the Stanley Cup. And I would certainly not be surprised if we had a rematch of last year's final.
I'm low key hoping we have a rematch of last year's final. It was a great final to watch. I mean, obviously it didn't end the way I wanted it to, but it was still a great final nonetheless. And I
Yeah.
would love nothing more than to see a rematch. And honestly, even if it ended with the same result, you're going to get a good series out of it. And that's what's the most important. It's going to be a fun series to watch. The playoffs this year are going to be
Playoffs are going to
fucking
be great. I really
insane.
wish Minnesota was good enough to squeak in this year, but that's a different problem for a different day. And when we
Yeah.
after we do our playoff preview show, we will do a show to discuss the teams that missed the playoffs. And I assume Minnesota will be in that group, and we'll talk
Oh,
about that then. But yeah, I think the playoffs are going to be really, really fun this year. I mean, it seems like we say it every year. Oh, this is going to be the best playoffs, but this year it really does seem like we're in for some extremely fun hockey in the playoffs. With how high scoring it's been in the league this year, it's going to be insane. I just can't wait. There's going to be some really good matchups. I really am excited if we do get another Boston-Toronto matchup. It's always a fun one to watch. I'll love to watch the 2-3 matchup between the Central Division teams, whether it's Colorado-Dallas, Colorado-Winnipeg, Winnipeg-Dallas, whatever it is. That's going to be a great first-round matchup, and it's too bad that it'll only be a first-round matchup and not a second or third round. But we're going to have a lot of fun series this year for sure.
I think we're going to have a lot of good first round matchups this year too.
Yeah.
So I mean, the first round alone is going to be a bloodbath. So like you said, it's going to be absolutely intense. This is already the craziest hockey season we've ever seen. So I can only imagine how the playoffs are going to go.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. So, with that in mind, unless you got anything else, I think we're just about ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, this is exactly how I wanted this episode to be. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been here from the start and everybody who's listening now. At no point when we started this did I think we were going to reach the amount of listeners and streams and downloads that we have. And I'm very excited and proud to say that we have over 2,000 listeners on this show. And this is only our 7th episode.
That's very cool. I did not know that until you just said that, so that's very interesting to hear. So that's awesome.
I purposely waited for this show to tell you.
That's great. Well, that's a good surprise, man. Thank you. That was the best birthday gift of all. For anybody that does not know, my birthday was this past week, so I usually don't go all crazy for my birthday, but there's a good gift, so thank you.
Yeah, so seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of you. This has been incredible. And I would also like to send a special shout out and thank you to Ben Palaco, who I know is listening to this episode, for his input on the last episode. That was by far our most successful episode. And Ben is just such a great guy, and he's so knowledgeable about hockey. And
somebody has to be, because we aren't.
Yeah. But we will have him back on this show again at some point, because we had so much fun doing that episode.
He's a good guy.
He's a great guy. And we're just having such a good time doing this show. It's already far exceeded our expectations. This was just something we wanted to do, just me and Brian, just because we like to listen to ourselves talk about hockey. So the fact that so many of you have been so supportive of all this, I mean, this is impossible without any of you. So thank you, and thank you a million times to Lighting's Property Management for the sponsorship, as well as our newest partner, Xeno Pucks. We could not have done this without any of you. And again, another shout out to Buck a Puck for ALS, and congratulations on everything you guys have done thus far.
And what they're going to keep going to do too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your support on this. I'm actually pretty surprised to hear that, so I'm very happy this has turned out well, and it's definitely far exceeded my expectations, so I'm very happy to be a part of it. And this, I mean, as much as we wanted to do this mostly was your idea, so I want you to take a lot of the credit for this, because you really lit the fire under our asses to get this thing going. So as much as we work together to put the show together each week, it all started because you were the one that really kicked both of us in the ass to get it going. So thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's been fun, and there's nobody else I'd rather be doing this show with. So
that's right. Now, if only we were good at it, I think then it would help.
Hey, maybe someday we will be, but for right now, we're just having fun with it.
Yeah, that's right. It's awesome. My only regret is that we absolutely dropped the ball in Nashville.
Well, I'll take partial credit for that, because me and one of our buddies decided, hey, let's go to the bar before the game and have a couple of tequila shots.
That's okay. I wouldn't change 1 second of that trip. It was fun.
No, we had such a great trip there. The Preds won over Colorado. It was just a great weekend with the boys. And those weekends are weekends you wouldn't trade for anything in the world. And so
that's right. Memories that last a lifetime.
Absolutely. Just very grateful for everything that we've had going on as of late. And we can't wait to keep making more episodes of this show. We're having a blast, and we hope you guys are too.
All right. Well, with that being said, we will see you guys next week, and we will be back next Sunday. So like we started with this show, we wanted to do the show today just because everything was so fresh from the deadline. But we will resume doing shows on Sundays starting next Sunday. So we'll see you then.
Take care and comb your hair.